This is the Becker's Healthcare Podcast, created by the team at Becker's Healthcare, a multimedia company devoted to the people who power U.S. healthcare. 4 new 15-minute episodes are released daily, containing industry news, analysis, and thought leadership from powerful healthcare decision makers. Support our show by leaving it a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts or other platforms you use. It's a chance to tell us what you like about the show and act on your feedback. Thanks for listening. Now here's the episode.
This is Chanel Bunger with a special episode of the Becker's Healthcare and Becker Private Equity and Business Podcast. And today I'm delighted to speak with Eric Schaefer, partner at Columbus Capital Partners, to talk about some business trends he's watching, advice for leaders, and a little bit more. Eric, thank you so much for joining me. Can you take a moment and introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your background and career?
Hi, Chanel. Great to be here, and thanks for the invite. And I've been in the healthcare, let's call it healthcare IT, healthcare services, healthcare BPO business for about the last 25 years. Started back in 1997, co-founded a company with Joe DiMartini and Drew Schmidt. We were based in St. Louis. Company was called Advanced Business Fulfillment, but everybody kind of knew us as ABF. And we started that business in 97, grew it really quickly. We were the 23rd fastest growing company in the Inc. 500 in 2003 when it came out. And we ended up selling that business to WebMD Corp in 2003. And we worked for WebMD for a couple of years. That WebMD eventually renamed our business, and some other healthcare IT businesses, they renamed it MDON. And then that business ultimately became Change Healthcare, and then ultimately recently was just Change Healthcare was just rolled up inside of Optum. So when that run kind of ended in about 2006, we started another business in the similar space called Red Card Systems in 2007. And the business we were in, I mean, we were managing the back office, doing work between payers, all the communication that goes on between payers, providers, and plan members, and then any other, kind of constituents in the healthcare market. So that was kind of the core of the business. And Red Card was very similar to ABF in its incarnation, except we had 4 products, whereas at ABF we really only had 1. So we were a lot more into electronic payments at Red Card. We did a software as a service model for the business as well, and partnered up with Xerox Corp on a SaaS model. We did all the communication work, but we also did kind of managed all the enrollment communication that goes on between a health plan and a plan member. So the product set was brought at Red Card, and we grew that business as well, very quickly over really from the course of about 2009 to about 2015. We really ramped up the business. And then we ultimately did a private equity transaction with Parthenon out of Boston in 2018. And then shortly after that, a year and a half later, we did a larger recap with Red Card Systems with Bain Capital, Parthenon, and a company that Parthenon owned called Zealous Healthcare. So that deal's been, was put together in 2019. So we're going on to our 4th anniversary of it. I'm on the board of directors with Zealous today, and actively working with Parthenon and Zealous and Columbus Capital essentially as an institutional investor in the Zealous entity. And so that kind of, business is doing great and keeping us busy, but that kind of brings us up to today.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that introduction. And now moving forward, what are some of the trends that you're watching in your current role today?
And I'm going to put on, I'll kind of wear 2 hats here a little bit. Still have the Zealous hat on, as that's our largest investment, and from our operational experience, that's our company. But then on the Columbus Capital side, we're investing in other areas of healthcare. So I'll kind of talk a little bit, kind of from both sides. And so some things I'm looking at, there's a lot of interesting technologies and technology-based services businesses that are floating around. But there's also some pretty interesting, I guess if you look at industry trends first, there's a few big things that I've been kind of keeping an eye on. One of them is in the Blue Cross market, there's what I guess law, kind of a mechanical change to the way the Blue Cross networks have operated over the years. And now the Blue Cross individual state domains are going to be those lines are going to be blurred, where any Blue Cross can compete across state lines for business. So the concept of the Blue Card, what used to be kind of known as the Blue Card, is going to change dramatically, and that's going to have an impact on a lot of, since the Blues are anywhere from 50 to 65% of the markets in most of the states they participate in. It's going to have a pretty market effect on what's going on and how networks are handled, how claims and payments are processed, kind of the, what happens in and out of, out of network scenarios change. So that's one kind of macro area that there's going to be a lot of things happening in the, starting in about 6 months or so. I think another area is everybody's still focusing a lot on trying to, change or enhance what is blanketly called the member experience and dealing with their own health plan, but also dealing with access to care and access to the health system and provider market. There's always a lot of work there. There's always a lot of discussion around the digital member experience, and there's a lot of things that have been done, but not a lot of things have taken hold. So I think people are starting to look at new perspectives on how to deliver information about the plan, information about the network, information about access, information about scheduling, information about, an optimal care path, how to handle the financial journey. So there's a lot of stuff going on in that arena. Again, kind of, I don't know what iteration or generation you'd call it, maybe like the third generation of activity and technology being developed in that area. But there's one big wrinkle to it now that again, I'm kind of macro, kind of keeping an eye on, is the use of conversational AI and how that plays into talking to plan members, helping manage interactions with providers, and using that technology for everybody's benefit out there in U.S. healthcare. So that's an interesting area that I've started to pay some attention to. We mentioned the Blue Cross earlier, but in terms of the back office and areas where we've had a lot of experience, the United Optum's acquisition of Change Healthcare is a very big thing in the industry, and it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out over the next 12 months, now that the merger actually was approved and closed, and the companies are coming together, just because of the scale of both of those, the scale of both United and Optum and Change Healthcare. It'll be interesting to see what, if any large dynamics change for the payer provider, member interactions, not just for United's plan members, but for others. So those are kind of the macro areas, macro things I've been kind of looking at. You dig a little deeper underneath and kind of thinking, now I'm kind of switching to my Columbus Capital and areas we're looking at for investment, payment efficiency across the healthcare spectrum, payer to provider, insurance company to provider, thinking in terms of activities like subrogation and third-party payment, the communication chain, which, a lot of the experience we had in ABF and Redcard along how to effectively communicate with members and providers with where they, and the way and how they want to be communicated to an efficient basis. We've been looking at some things in, technology-based, technology-oriented process that this song never changes to some extent, but the fact that there's ways to use technology to improve longstanding manual processes in healthcare, there's still a lot of things out there that are not very efficient that can leverage technology to get done. And we've made a couple of investments there in the pharmacy space and in the payment recovery and subrogation space. And then another area we're kind of looking at is back in the PBM world and the pharmacy services world, but looking at ways to optimize, drug pricing and drug prescribing in some of the e-prescribing world. So that's another area there's been things that have been done. There's been interesting things done, but there's ways to leverage technology to enable the provider to make, the right call for a patient at the point of service and deliver the right drug at the right price. So I think generally speaking, that's probably the rundown from the macro to the micro of some of the things we've been looking at.
Got it. Thank you so much for walking us through that. And kind of going along those trends that you mentioned, what are you most focused on and excited about? And what initiative from the last 6 to 18 months are you most proud of?
I'd say what I've been the most proud of, kind of in the last year kind of window is, I guess the most satisfying, maybe proud is the wrong word, but just being able to get involved with some of the younger management teams that are out there with the companies that, not only at Zealous, with Amanda Eisel as the CEO, Yusuf Qasim, Jay Dede, Heather Cox, the people that are running the businesses at Zealous, but also with investments we've made, just being able to get involved with these younger, energetic, super bright management teams and be able to, offer the things that we know and we've learned from working with high growth companies, working with, expanding markets, working with, really focused sales efforts, and being able to kind of transfer some of that knowledge with the groups that we're engaged with has probably been the most rewarding thing for me in the last 12 to 18 months. But so yeah, I'm not going to say it's a one specific thing that I'm proud of. It's more of just being able to be in this environment and look at new technologies, look at new opportunities, look at new innovations, and be able to work through them with some of the management teams that we're collaborating with today.
Thank you. And you've had this amazing career and wear multiple hats and have worn multiple different types of hats throughout your career. With that, could you maybe share a few pieces of advice for emerging leaders?
Yeah, thinking about that question, because I know you guys had framed it up, and one of the things that, and this is kind of thinking about direct experience. The one thing that I really am excited about with the leadership and the management teams we're working with is that it seems like, this new group, now that I'm a little more gray hair and a little more seasoned, perhaps, the new group of people we deal with, they seem to be very aggressive, and very dynamic in terms of, how they're running these businesses, how they're pursuing partnerships. Partnerships is one area that, we always felt like when we were running our businesses that we had to kind of do things ourselves, and we would do a few strategic partnerships. But people now, there just seems to be a different approach to how to leverage quality relationships, quality partnerships, of this mentality of collaboration that even if you're a large business, you still need to look outside your four walls potentially to get stuff done in a expedient manner. So I think there's this boldness to this group, and that'd be one of the things I would say is when you're looking at a situation, you're looking at a business, you want to grow it, you have to be a little bit bold, and you got to be a little unafraid to go get out there and get after it, and maybe take a little risk or make your risky decision, a calculated risk, but a risk, maybe take a little risk to really grow a business. And that leads to, when you're thinking that you're in that role, that you really, every day when you wake up, you can think about a lot of things with the business, but you really have to focus on stuff that's going to drive things. And what drives things is innovation, innovation leads to growth, then increased sales and being able to differentiate yourself in the market. So this kind of, wake up and, that I think there's a poster, one of those poster boards out there that, when a lion wakes up every day, he knows he has to run faster than the fastest antelope if he wants to eat, and the antelope knows it has to run faster than the fastest lion if he wants to survive that day. But that, that's what innovation is all about, just waking up with that drive and leverage, and the things you can leverage to do more or come up with new ideas. And that leads into, thinking about product development, thinking about how you build scale, and those things are the things we tend to concentrate on when we're giving advice or mentoring, this next group of leaders, in all the companies that we're working with.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that sound advice. And Eric, I also want to thank you for joining me today on the Becker's Healthcare and the Becker Private Equity and Business podcast. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chanel. You have a great day.
It's so important for leaders at the top of organizations to keep learning, stay sharp, grow their networks. To help our audience better do this in a more simplified, personalized, and meaningful way, Becker's Healthcare has launched My BHC. It's your trusted Becker's Healthcare experience and more, with content, connections, events, and learning opportunities. Join the community free of charge at www.my.beckershospitalreview.com, and we'll see you there.